Let's discuss toxic masculinity. You ever wonder how we got here? How we got to this place where being a man means suppressing your emotions, dominating others, and measuring your worth by how much power you hold? Where masculinity is often about control instead of character, strength instead of sacrifice? That's toxic masculinity. The world says a man has to be tough, aggressive, even ruthless. But let's be real. How much of that actually lines up with God's design? When I open the Bible, I don't see a God who calls men to be emotionally numb or abusive. I don't see a Christ who defines masculinity by how loud, violent, or intimidating a man can be. I see a different standard, one rooted in love, integrity, and responsibility. Look at Jesus, the ultimate example of manhood. Was he strong? Absolutely, but not in the way culture defines it. His strength wasn't in how many people he controlled, but in how many people he served. Philippians 2 verses 5 through 8 says, "He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross." Now that's leadership. That's masculinity. Sacrificial, humble, not insecure, and power hungry. And what about David? A warrior and a king, yet he wept openly, danced before the Lord, and wrote poetry about his feelings. Was he weak? No. He was a man after God's own heart. And Joseph, betrayed, enslaved, falsely accused, but he didn't let bitterness consume him. He remained faithful. He rose to power, not through manipulation, but through wisdom and integrity. Now contrast that with the world's version of manhood, one that glorifies pride over humility, lust over love, and dominance over self-control. Toxic masculinity teaches men to avoid vulnerability. Yet James 5 verse 16 tells us to confess our sins one to another. Toxic masculinity says never back down, but Proverbs 15:1 says a soft answer turns away wrath. So maybe it's time we stop letting culture define manhood and start letting Christ do it. Maybe it's time we trade toxic masculinity for biblical masculinity, one that values strength, yes, but strength through love, wisdom, and self-control. Why? Because a real man isn't afraid to lead with love. He's not afraid to serve. He's not afraid to be like Christ. That's real masculinity, and that's God's design.